It's going to improve your ability to ask impactful questions.
Yeah.
Not just random questions, not just the questions everyone else will ask.
Having an impact with what you're doing versus just the numbers and feeding the algorithm and the metrics and all of the stuff that people talk about ad nauseum, but they don't give you the importance of actually having an intention.
It's that thing of, if you're not flexible enough to go with the flow, to be able to recognize, be aware, and recognize when something great is happening before your eyes, you're going to suck all the energy out of the room.
Yielding the floor to whoever is providing the most expertise in the moment, or whoever is just really guiding the flow of the conversation the best in that moment. And recognizing that you don't always have to. A great co-host isn't just someone who sounds good on the mic. They have the right mindset to maximize the impact of the conversation. So what are the distinguishable mental habits of an outstanding co-host? Let's first start with why mindset matters. The difference between a good co-host and a great one starts with their mental approach. We're going to unpack the 4 core mindset traits to transform chemistry, content, and collaboration. And then we're going to give you the steps to ensure your co-host has the right mindset to grow with you and your platform. And with that said, that's Marion.
And that's Joe.
And I am a podcast pro. Marion.
Yes.
What's that pro stand for?
Listen, that pro, that P to the R to the O, pro. P, purpose. A co-host without purpose is just a voice. A co-host with purpose is an undeniable force. That R is resilience. Podcasting, it isn't about perfection. It's about the ability to keep going, to keep learning, and to keep growing. It's never ending. Oh, it's outstanding. A truly outstanding co-host, they're not found. They are built through passion, practice, and purpose.
I like that. So, Brian, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question to kick this off. So, what is a trait that somebody has to have, a co-host has to have, to show that they are committed to intentional, continuous growth, or otherwise they're stagnant with their growth or their evolution as a co-host? What's that first trait they got to have?
That trait that they have to not be stagnant as a co-host, they have to be learned. There is power in being someone who is a forever student about your craft, about anything in life.
Yeah.
That continual growth, it just keeps making you a better and better you.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that what you already know is invalid or not enough. It was enough for the moment that you knew that. But now that you know more, that's enough. And then when you know even more, that becomes enough. Learned is a very key component, because if you think that in every room, you're the smartest person in the room, or if you build your life in a way that in every room that you go in, you're the smartest person, you're never going to grow past where you are presently in life.
That's powerful.
It hinders your growth. Is there something where you found that, Joe, you know what? I'm going to need to look at this. I got to look at this and grow in it.
I was just learning about cryptocurrency and blockchain at the time. And I had several guests on my show to talk about these things. I had somebody explain it to me before even having these particular guests on my show. Having that explanation from the brother who broke it down for me gave me a foundation for when I had the guests on my show who broke it down even further from the lawyer perspective, and why it's important to understand the legal ramifications of these things. but I had to do my own research. I had to say, you know what, I want to learn a little bit more about this. I want to be able to contribute to the conversation without taking away from it, with at least a base level knowledge, so that I could contribute something to it, have somebody on the platform who was able to explain it in a way that made sense to my community. Because the bottom line is, you have to be learned enough, but to a certain degree, it is humility, humble enough to say, okay, I don't know everything about this, but what I do know, I'm going to make sure that I communicate it in a way that people can receive it. Because that's the key thing about being learned. It's not how much you know, it's how you can communicate what you know.
That's very good. How you can communicate what you know. I also want to make sure that we highlight that in podcasting, being a co-host, you want to make sure that that co-host, in being learned, that they can take feedback as feedback and not criticism. You can give them the feedback with an example and with suggestions, and discuss it so that the needed changes can be made. An actionable thing that you can see is that they can take feedback and apply it. They can study and analyze information and bring it to the table so that everyone can use it, or that they can present it at the pertinent time within the episode to elevate it. So you want them to be able to open up and grow. And sometimes somebody is going to have to be the test dummy, the example person, to actually simplify, because you'll get a guest or you'll have someone who's experienced in the field, and then they're using the language or jargon that goes with that field, but it's not translating well for someone who's just trying to learn.
Right.
So then you have to be as the co-host or host, you have to go, hey, the community is not going to understand this.
Right.
If somebody doesn't go, hey, you just use this word, what exactly does that mean? So it's that you want to have that mindset of being learned in your own time and in the time of actually being live on the podcast, because that growth challenges you. It's going to challenge you, and it's going to improve your connection with your fellow co-hosts, with the guests, and with the community. It's going to improve your ability to ask impactful questions.
Yeah.
Not just random questions, not just the questions everyone else will ask. You're able to really ask in-depth questions. So those are the actionable things that come from that learnedness. You'll learn that pace. You'll learn to go, we've been here too long. Time to switch to this. Don't forget, we want to talk about these 3 topics.
Yeah.
There's nothing going on right now. Let's go ahead and transition. You'll be able to pace it and just know this is our bracket of time. Time to go ahead and wrap this all up. You'll get that pace and that energy level. You'll be able to feel that your co-host is going, hey, let's bring this up. Let's do it. Let's do it. If you're not doing, or if the guest is kind of not falling flat, but falling in a place where it's not still moving the conversation forward with a certain type of energy that draws people in. Okay, Joe, I want to pose this second question to you. How can a co-host respect the natural balance of a conversation without dominating the mic?
I would say that trait can be summed up as deference. And what I mean by that is, there are times when you recognize that maybe another co-host is talking, or maybe the guest is talking. And in those moments, and it's kind of related to patience in a way that we described last week, but the difference is, deference is more so yielding the floor to whoever is providing the most expertise in the moment, or whoever is just really guiding the flow of the conversation the best in that moment. And recognizing that you don't always have to You don't always have to speak, or you don't always have to ask a question in a certain moment. Sometimes you just got to defer to that person. I give a perfect example. In an episode of the Balance and Act radio show, shout out to my homegirl, Erica Boogie Doyle. She was on the show, and we had Fredro Starr on the show. It was one of those conversations that, a lot of people tuned in for, probably more than normal, understandably so, because it was Fredro. I asked a couple of questions in the very beginning, but then she got in the groove of asking questions, and it was like, she's asking such great questions. I don't want to stop this train. It's like, what do I need to ask in this moment? That's a platform that I created. I had another co-host on the show. She was a guest host on the show, but she was rocking and rolling with those questions and getting some great answers out of Fredro that I had to defer to her in that moment, because the conversation was going in a great direction, and I didn't want to disrupt it with my ego or my pride, because, it's my show, I created, blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, if I'm welcoming her as a guest host on the show, I have to allow her the space to ask the questions that come naturally to her, because a lot of those questions I could tell, like, they were just coming off the cuff. They weren't like scripted questions. These were questions that were like, okay, as Fredro was saying certain things, it made her then ask the next question. And for me, that was the most important part of deferring, was because the conversation that the community was getting was more important than who was asking the question. And so when you're deferring to somebody, it's basically saying, you know what, you got it. And it's okay that you got it. And I'm going to defer to you in that moment. Now, that's not to say to just completely step back. Now, let me be clear. When it comes to deference, it's not to say completely step back and take your voice out of it, but it is to say, it goes back to awareness, and it goes back to patience. Awareness and patience together is deference a lot of times. And it's being aware of saying, okay, this person is in a groove. I don't want to disturb the groove of the conversation. So let me fall back momentarily. And if I need to jump in, or if I need to add something, then I will. But it's okay that this person is controlling the pace of the conversation, because as long as the conversation is meaningful, as long as the conversation has something of value that the community can get, then that's the most important part. Marion, have you ever found yourself in a moment, whether you've co-hosted or whether you've hosted, and you had to defer to a guest in a moment and say, like, yeah, I want to jump in, but I'm going to defer to them in this moment because they are really giving so many good gems and jewels that I don't want to stop that flow?
Yes, there have been times where we've gone overtime for someone to explain a story or explain a life experience. And it was too impactful to pass by,
Yeah.
because I felt great. Now other people know they're not the only ones that have gone through this. Now other people can see this person made it, and I'll be able to make it. Now
Yeah.
other people can hear how that person made it. I did not want to, in that moment, interrupt someone overcoming the obstacle that the expert was there to speak on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was very vital for me. And it's crazy that you asked that, because now, just in listening to what you're saying in the answer to question 2, the third thing that we discuss, I would just say it has to be intentionality.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you're sharing is definitely, it speaks to being intentional.
Mm-hmm.
It speaks to doing everything with a purpose. So people will say, have a goal for the episode. For me, I say, have an intent and a purpose for the episode. What is
Mm-hmm.
the intent? What do you want to convey? What do you want to express? what what tangible information can someone walk away and be able to apply from what was just said?
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, to me, because I guess my podcasts have always been on cultivating the person, you want to do that, you're
Yeah.
going to need to teach them something. You're going to need to share things that will help people know, wait, that just gave me, that articulated what this
Mm-hmm.
situation is for me.
Yeah.
That gave me the verbiage to be able to better express what this is. That gave me the understanding to better maneuver
Mm-hmm.
in the situation. Because if you're not intentional, you'll find your episodes and the things that you do with your co-host to be muddy
Yeah. Yeah.
because nothing is clarified, nothing is
Mm-hmm.
defined.
Mm-hmm.
You'll find it to be unfocused
Yeah.
because nothing is clarified, nothing is defined, nothing is pointing to a clear and understood, agreed upon purpose,
Yeah.
intent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's great to have a goal of, oh, I'm going to do 100 episodes. Great. What
Mm-hmm.
service did you provide to anyone
Right.
in those 100 episodes?
It's funny that you said 100 because I don't know, for whatever reason, I just watched the Kobe Making of a Legend series, mini series on CNN, and all I could think about was Kobe talking about, instead of hanging out and being with friends, he was in the gym, just putting up 1,000 jump shots a day. And anybody could shoot 1,000 jump shots, but it's like, what's your intent behind shooting those shots? Do you want to shoot them just to shoot them, or do you want to shoot them so that a significant amount of them go in? And when you do that, how does that prepare you for the game itself? And because you've already put in the work, because you've already had a purpose behind your work, and you've set certain things aside so that you could focus more of your attention on that, and you're clear in your goal that you want to get to this place because you've done this work, it makes the end product better in the, when it comes down to it, because you were intentional when you went in that gym and you took those 1,000 shots, or you said, I want to do these 100 episodes, but with these 100 episodes, I want to do this, and this, and I want to achieve this. I want my community to get this amount of value from that. Like, having that intentionality is absolutely key to making sure that you're actually having an impact with what you're doing, versus just the numbers and feeding the algorithm and the metrics and all of the stuff that people talk about ad nauseum, but they don't give you the importance of actually having an intention. I see people talk about this even with music, that it's not enough. In fact, I'm gonna name him by name because he's one of my favorite people talking about this. Damian Keys, last name spelled Keyes. He will always talk about how it's not enough to just post just a picture of yourself and there's no purpose to posting a picture if you're a musician or if you're an artist. There has to be some sort of intent behind the pictures that you post, or the posts that you post, or the stories that you share. It has to be able to connect with your audience, because, again, the whole thing of intentionality goes right. Everything is feeding right into each other as we're talking. Intentionality connects right with relatability. If you don't have an intention with what you're doing, people will not be able to relate. They'll be like, well, what is this for? I don't get it. People want to get what you're presenting. So you have to make sure that what you're doing, it actually has an intention to it.
Okay, Joe, to keep from crumbling apart when things don't go as planned, what's a trait that a co host needs to be adaptable?
A person is going to need spontaneity, because, yeah, what's on the paper, it's not always going to go that way. What's scripted is not always going to be that way. I think of some of the best moments in television. I think of some of the best moments in music, where you can have a script down and there's a moment when it's like, okay, that wasn't in the script. That wasn't supposed to happen the way it was supposed to happen. I can't tell you how many times I heard somebody on a movie set talk about how you're supposed to deliver a punch in a way where it doesn't actually connect with the person, but like it looks like it connects. But it's been a couple of times when like I've watched behind the scenes of certain movies. Yeah, he actually landed that punch. That reaction was pretty real. And in that moment, you still have to remain in character. Like you can't go out of character and be like, oh man, you really stole me. You can't. You have to remain in the scene. Yeah, that you wasn't planning for that punch to actually land, but your reaction was still real because that punch actually landed. So it's like, now what are you going to do now that the punch has landed? And that's probably the best way to look at spontaneity in podcasting. Sometimes
wait. You brought up movies.
Oh yeah, go ahead. What you got?
The best spontaneous scene in a movie that I found out about.
Yeah.
Training Day. Denzel King Kong was not scripted.
Yeah.
To the point that the actual gang members that they paid to just be extras on set came up and was like, what? They started, so it wasn't scripted, but after he said what he said, there was nothing, everything in them just said, walk away.
Yeah.
And they walked away.
Yeah.
His dialogue wasn't scripted. Their response was not scripted.
Yeah.
But there was no way that you were not, that wasn't going to make the movie.
Right. Because them walking away, and I'm glad that you brought that part up in terms of that not being a scripted moment, because them walking away in that scene to me was the most powerful point of that scene. Like it wasn't even what he said, it was their response to what he said. Like, man, I'm not standing around for this. That's the way it looked on camera. Like, all right.
They walked away. Literally, they said, "Is he like? Do you know that Denzel is not in the game?" Because he really so to the point that his response after he finished, he said, "I don't know where that came from."
Wow, yeah.
That's what the definition of spontaneity is. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
But to add to that, but that was amazing.
Yes. And that's the key thing. That was amazing. That those three simple words, that was amazing. That's the response that you want to be able to get, not only from your community and listening to whatever's being said, but also from your guests and also from your co-hosts. Because the bottom line is that is the type of experience that you want to create. That's the type of response and reaction you want to create, because then that energy just reverberates around the room and outwardly to the community, because they're sitting there like, yeah, well, I don't know if that was planned, but man, that was a gem.
Yeah.
That was a bar. That was something that needed to be said. And I can't tell you how many times that has come up in conversation where we could be talking about one thing, like we could be talking about something regarding music, and then somehow, some way we get taken into this direction of spirituality and connecting that spirituality to the music, and it's not planned. And in that moment, you see the reactions from the people in the community, and it's like, oh my gosh, like I felt the same way, or whatever it might be. These wow moments and these, the mind blown emoji, all of that type of stuff, because it's like you weren't expecting that. And you have to, the key thing is you have to leave room for that spontaneity. You have to leave room off the script. Sometimes you got to go off the script. Sometimes you got to be prepared for that punch to come out of nowhere. And it's all about how do you prepare yourself for when that punch lands and you're not expecting it to land. Even though it's supposed to miss you ever so slightly. But if it lands, how do you respond to it? How do you react to it? How do you add to the scene, so to say? How do you heighten that moment so that people can get so much out of it that they have no choice but to come back for more after that? Because people can tell when something is scripted and they can tell when something is unexpected. I think people like a balance of both. And that's really what we're saying, like the intentionality. That's why it was important to feed from intentionality in the spontaneity, because yes, you do want to have an intention with what you're doing, but you also want to leave room for the unexpected to happen, because that's where the magic is. That's where the blessings are. That's where you really get something that could really transform somebody's life that you weren't expecting to transform their life in that moment, because you allowed something to come out of nowhere. And I don't really believe in things coming out of nowhere. I believe that God informs it all, but still something that you weren't planning. You weren't planning to happen, and it happened anyway, because that's the way it was supposed to happen, even though it wasn't on the paper to happen that way.
Yeah. It's that improv. It's that thing of, if you're not flexible enough to go with the flow, to be able to recognize, be aware and recognize when something great is happening before your eyes, you're going to suck all the energy out of the room.
Yes.
You're going to stop. I have seen people literally stop it. I have seen people, it just became uncomfortable for them because they're not used to surprises. Instead of hearing the value and the impact of what's going on, they stopped it.
Yeah.
They didn't allow it to organically blossom into what it was. Imagine in Training Day, Denzel starts saying, King Kong ain't got, and they said, cut!
Right.
I didn't write that. I didn't write that.
Yeah.
Then the top scene from the movie.
It's the most quoted scene. Yeah.
There it is. The most quoted scene from the movie would not exist.
Right.
Because you couldn't go with the surprise, spontaneity of the moment. And that sometimes that spontaneity, it doesn't come from the things you're conscious of. Sometimes people can say things, and the things that you unconsciously feel, hold on to, think about, that's what springs forth. That's what comes out. Sometimes there's that spontaneity of revelation, and you just feel like, oh my goodness, all this time I've been saying it this way. I can admit that I was wrong because it's this way. Because of the dialogue we just shared, I now have a new and a better understanding of what we're talking about.
Yes.
Or of my mindset. Hence the episode about your co-host mindset.
That's right.
Tell people how they can reach us.
So, if you want to reach us, if you haven't already followed us, we are at I'm a Podcast Pro on Instagram. We have a Facebook page, I'm a Podcast Pro, with Marion and Joe. We are here, right here on YouTube. I am a Podcast Pro. So please make sure that you like, comment, share, and of course, subscribe to our channel. Hit that bell notification so whenever we go live, whenever we share shorts, whenever we share any bit of content, you'll be among the first to get it. And if you have any questions, suggestions, anything that could contribute not only to our podcast and our community, or you just have a question that you just need answered by us that we can either address one-on-one or we can address in an episode, feel free to email us at iamapodcastpro@gmail.com.
And this is a community. Please
Yes.
don't forget to put your podcast in the comments. Put yourself out there. Take this opportunity. We're all together in this.
So we thank you once again for tuning in to another episode. And remember, go out and own how much you are a podcast pro.
There it is. Have a good one. See you next time.